Hey guys, it's Miss Kessling again. I just wanted to make a quick video because this week we're going to do a virtual flower lab, and for that lab you're going to need to remember the steps and the variables of the scientific method. So you're going to want to make sure you review this and complete the assignment that goes along with it just to help with the review, because I know it's been a while since we've covered this terminology. All right, so the first thing I want to review is the steps. So just to remind you, the precept, who remembers the precept? If you remember, it always starts with ostriches. So the precept is to observe, make an observation. So if you realize that like plants aren't growing, you might notice, hey, they're not growing, which will then lead you to step one, which is to ask a question. It would lead you to, why aren't they growing? Then step two is to form a hypothesis. Remember, the steps of those we'll go over in a little bit. Step three is to test the hypothesis. Step four, this is where you actually, so testing is where you actually do the experiment. Step four is analyze the results. This is where you go through your data and try to make sense of it. Step five is where you draw conclusions. This is where you look to see whether you were right or wrong in your experiment. And step six, finally, is to communicate results. So that was a real quick overview of those steps. So now let's talk about the hypotheses. So a hypothesis, let me move this over a little, is basically a possible explanation for what's going to happen. So you're going to basically try to just figure out what you think is going to happen in an experiment, and you can be right or wrong. It absolutely does not matter in science. Scientists are wrong all the time. Remember, there are some rules for writing a hypothesis. Try to think back, pause the video real quick if you want, and try to see if you can remember what those rules are for writing a hypothesis. All right, so first rule, and the order doesn't matter, is that it needs to be in an if-then format. So if this happens, then this is going to happen. If plants are watered with salt water, then their growth will increase or decrease or whatever. Step two, cause and effect. So it's going to, whenever you do an if-then format, it should automatically create a cause and effect situation. If I water plants with salt water, then they will decrease in growth. What caused the decrease in growth is the watering with the salt water. Step three, no pronouns. No I, you, me, she, he, they, none of that. Step four, rule four, be specific. So don't say, well, I think this is going to happen, or maybe this is going to happen. You want to be definitive, be specific. And you also want to be confident. So you want to say it's going to happen, and you want to be as specific as possible. Okay? So just to remember an experimental group, this is the group that you test on, that the experimenter tests on. So in this situation here, if we want to know the effects of air on meat, and that should say meat is M-E-A-T, not M-E-E-E-T, you are going to want to know what the treatment is. Well, in this case, if we want to know the effects of air on meat, then the treatment's the air. So that would mean the experimental group in this case is group A. Over here, the control group, that's the group that you do not test on. You do nothing to this group. And it does not receive the treatment. So if the air is the treatment, then the control group is group B in this case, because that's not being exposed to air. So just remember, experimental is being tested on. You're actually experimenting on that group. All right, the variables. An independent variable is the variable that the scientist manipulates or changes. So it's whatever changes from group to group, whatever they're manipulating. So in this experiment, you can see that we're watering different plants with different liquids. We have soda here, juice, and water. So in this case, this one would be our control group, because water, we already know what happens with water. Our experimental groups would be group A and B, because we don't know what happens with juice and pop. But in this case, our variable, what are we changing from plant A to plant B to plant C? We're not changing the plant, we're not changing the pot. What we're doing is we're changing the type of liquid. So that type of liquid would be the independent variable. The dependent variable is what you measure as a result or at the end of the experiment. So once we do this, what are we going to measure at the end of the experiment to see whether or not the pop or the juice or the water caused the most growth? Well, we're going to then obviously measure growth, the height of the plant. So hence the ruler here that you can see. So the dependent is what's measured, and in this case, it's the type of growth that's occurring. Constants are things that stay the same. I don't have a pull out for this, but they're variables that stay the same in all groups. So what would be some things in this experiment that would stay the same no matter what? So think about that. What's staying the same across the board here? We could say the soil, the type of soil. So actually I should say type of soil. What else is staying the same here? We have the type of soil, probably the type of plant, the type of pot, maybe the pot that they're in. Oh, I don't know what I just did there. Sorry, guys. The type of pot. Oh, there it is. I did have it. My bad. The type of plot. The type of pot. You could even say the amount of liquid. So even though the liquid is changing, the amount is going to be the same. So if I'm going to water it with a cup of water, I need to do a cup of juice and a cup of soda. So anything that's the same, probably the original height of the plant would want to be the same. You want to start out with one that's a lot bigger. You want them to be close in terms of their height originally. So let's just take a look at this one real quick. Mr. Krabs wants to make Bikini Bottom a nicer place. So he created a new sauce that he thinks will reduce the production of body gas associated with eating Krabby Patties from the Krusty Krab. He recruits 100 customers with a history of gas problems. He has 50 of them, Group A, eat Krabby Patties with the new sauce. The other 50, Group B, eat Krabby Patties with a sauce that looks just like the new sauce, but it is really just a mixture of mayo, mayonnaise, and food coloring. So that would essentially be a placebo. It's fake. They don't know it's not real. Both groups were told they were getting the sauce that would reduce the gas production. 2 hours after eating Krabby Patties, 30 customers in Group A reported having fewer gas problems, and 8 customers in Group B reported having fewer gas problems. So in this case, which one would be the experimental group is A. So group A, the one that's actually getting the sauce, is the experimental group. So the control group is the one that's not being experimented on. So in this case, they're technically being experimented on, but are they getting the treatment, which is the sauce? No, that's group B. The independent variable, who's getting what, is going to be I don't know what I did here, is going to be the amount of special sauce, because one group is getting the special sauce and the other group is not getting the special sauce. So that is the independent variable. What we're measuring at the end is the amount of gas. So hopefully the gas will go down if it works. Some constants that we would experience here that we'd want to keep the same. I said 3, but I gave you more than 3. So some constants would be like the age of the customers. You want them all to be around the same age group so that, you don't have older people who maybe have experienced gas more than like the younger Bikini Bottom residents. Number of customers. Each group has 50, so you want that to be the same for each group. Amount of sauce that they're getting. Even though they're not each getting the same sauce, the amount is what we want to keep the same. Amount of gas that they were experiencing initially, type of burger they're eating, even the size of the burger would probably be important, and then the time frame. They want to keep the time frame the same. So that's just a little review. I'm going to give you a couple problems like this today just to review. It is based on what we did with what you guys did with Miss Stephanie a while back, but if you have a hard time, just refer back to this video to help you with it, because tomorrow you will be doing a virtual lab and this will definitely help you answer those questions and complete that lab. Okay? As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Make sure you do your best. That's all I ask, is that you try. And like I said, feel free to reach out. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.